This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, okay. I just heard this conference will be recorded, so I better be direct, right? Yeah. So I'm Don. I'm 56 years old from Kansas City, Missouri. My GP noticed a spike in my PSA of over 1.5 over a 12-month period in January of 18 and referred me to a urologist. Urologist put me in on Flomax and stated he would do additional tests to break this down. After the second round of blood testing in June 18, he performed a biopsy in 7/18. The nurse called me 2 weeks later and said that I had a 3 plus a 4 or Gleason score of 7, 2 cores out of 12, and that I had cancer. Local surgeons suggested radical removal immediately of the prostate, but in learning that, I said I had no ED issues, and he said, well, I only know one place for you to go, and that is to Dr. Igor Frank at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and currently I have surgery scheduled for 9/18, and Dennis Correa in Tucson was kind enough to give me about an hour of his time earlier this week to just talk about stuff, and I'm glad to be here.
Don, did you have an MRI done or a CT scan?
MRI is scheduled for tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
But the biopsy is already performed. Also, carotid artery scan has been performed, and that came back good. And yeah, so the MRI is the last thing that I need to do to fill the doctor's requirements. Yes.
And so you only had 2 of 12 cores positive, and both were 3 plus 4.
Correct.
Did they indicate the volume of the cancer, the percent of the cores that had cancerous cells?
They have not yet. I spoke to the nurse today, and they are still awaiting those results. Yes. But
so Don, I think
yeah.
This is Rick. I thought I wrote to you. Did I not? I remember Dennis wrote to me, and I thought I responded to you. Or was it to Dennis? Did you get a note from us?
Must have been to, no, I believe you sent me a link to the website. Okay. But I've only had conversation with Dennis at this point.
Right. What's your last name?
Briggs, B-R-I-G-G-S.
Yeah, because I do remember Dennis. Dennis, you sent me a note about Don, did you not?
Yes, I did. I sent it to you and to Len.
And did we respond to that?
I didn't get anything back other than I think there was a comment that you were thinking about referring him, or maybe it was Len's comment about referring him to one of the other support groups.
Right. Here's the thing, Don. I'm sorry if you didn't get the message, but right now I would say this is not the right group for you to be speaking with, only because we deal on this group with advanced, recurrent, and high-risk cancer.
Okay.
And I don't know at this point in time if that's where you would be. I did send a note on the 25th 3 days ago, I sent a note to Peter and to Len and to Dennis. And because I don't think I had your email, and I suggested that they ask you to call into the group that we run every other week and which took place last night with Peter Kafka. Because he is definitely the right guy. I don't know, is Peter on this call? Yes or not?
I don't think so.
No, okay. So, I don't think this is the best call for you for 2 reasons. One, I don't necessarily want to expose you to some of the discussions that we'll have on this call because I don't want to unnecessarily scare you or intimidate you, and that could easily happen. And secondly, I don't want to take the time on this call for the other guys to speak with you because at this point, it's not clear that you are a high-risk case. If you were diagnosed with 3+4, then, worse, that would make you intermediate. And you have, we would hope, the type of prostate cancer that would be very, very manageable.
Good.
So
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do see your email was included by Dennis, so forgive me. But I just felt probably maybe, I don't know why I didn't copy you. I think because it came through Dennis. So I thought it would be forwarded on to you, and I asked Peter if he would reach out to you or add you to his distribution.
Yeah.
So
well, no worries whatsoever. It's all good. Yeah.
Okay. So at the same time, I do want you to get some input before you see Dr. Whatever his name is, Igor Frank? Mayo. Yeah.
Igor. Yeah.
So what I'm going to suggest you do is give Peter a call tonight. And
Peter.
Yeah, Peter Kafka.
Okay.
And
I believe that's who. Yeah.
And I'll let's see. How did you join us? Did you join us by phone or did you join us online?
I joined by phone at this time.
By phone. Okay, so let me give you. I'll email you Peter's telephone number in the next few minutes, and give him a call right now. Since he's not on this call, I don't know, he may be doing something or he may be busy. I know he is in Minnesota right now. And see if you can just get a few minutes of his time to make sure you cover with him what you need to talk about with Dr. Frank tomorrow. But I think some of it is to ascertain that you are in fact a 3+4, and then to start talking about treatment options, whether you want to do surgery, whether you want to do some type of radiation, and hopefully we will never talk to you on this call, and hopefully you will continue to participate with ANCAN on Peter's call, which is a very good call, and which is really the appropriate forum for you to be in.
No problem whatsoever, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so just watch out for your email over the next few minutes, and I'll send you Peter's details.
Okay, and I'll drop off, and you guys will continue. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to stay. You're very welcome to stay and listen in by all means. But I don't know. you know, what you hear may bother you a little bit, and that's the last thing I want to do to somebody who's been diagnosed with very manageable prostate cancer.
Well,
Rick, this is
hearing you say
Rick.
I've been. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Rick, Rick, the reason I asked Don to join this call, I know he's newly diagnosed and a 7, not necessarily high risk, but he does have surgery scheduled fairly soon. And it just seemed to me that I want to make sure that he has looked at all of the options available for that level of disease and not get pushed into radical prostatectomy if it's not necessary, if there's radiation options that would work for him, and to be sure that he's aware of all of the various risks with any of these types of procedures, so he can make an informed decision.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what Peter's call handles for men who have low and intermediate risk disease.
Okay.
Which is why, I had hoped he would be able to talk to Peter yesterday. They had a good group last night because I joined it for about half an hour just after I arrived home, and there were 11 people on the call last night, so it was a good group. But that's very much the forum that Don should be talking to, because for us to go through, and most of us know the discussions that you would like Don to participate in, but I don't want to take the time in this group to go through it. It's not fair on the other members of the group.
Understood, and
this
no
is Dennis.
problem.
I think I got you in the right church, but the wrong pew.
Okay. Well, that's
Okay.
It wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Well, I think what it is the right church, but the wrong service.
The wrong service. All right. So somebody will send me a link to Peter, and I'm good. And Dennis, I appreciate you getting me involved, and Godspeed to everyone. Yeah.
Sure.
Welcome. Hope we don't have you on this call.
Yeah.
And that everything goes good for you.
Dennis, ask Peter to place you on his distribution list. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good luck, Dennis.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. So we're gonna have to manage without my camera, and I'll address it momentarily. Let's see. I need to make a list of people that are on the call. So we've got Dennis, we got Jake, we've got Len, we got Brian, hi Z. I'm working with 2 computers as well here, which makes life a little bit tricky. We got Jay Krugman. Hi, Jay. We got Joel. Which Joel is that? We have more than one Joel.
Joel Blanchett.
Okay. We have Les. And we have Mike Stewart. Okay, I think everybody has been on the call before. Is that correct?
Actually,
let me put it a different way. Is there anybody who has not been on the call before?
on this particular one, this is my first time.
Ah, so I've seen your name, Mike. Have you been on Peter's call before?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it was suggested that I make the change, and I have a little bit more information to pass along too.
Excellent. That's probably why I recognize your name. So let's treat you as if this was the first time, even though we know that you come from Peter. Let's assume that that you haven't been on the call before, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the issues and why you're joining us here. I actually do have a few notes. I remember talking to you on that call. You live in North Carolina, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you switched over to Duke.
That's correct.
Okay, so why don't you fill the guys in a little bit on your background?
Okay, I'll kind of start back at the beginning. I was actually diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2011, at which time, basically immediately, I had a radical prostatectomy, which that's another story too, since I know quite a bit more in the last 7 years than I did prior to that. Started out with a biopsy of 7. It was considered high volume. I was 10 out of 12 cores positive. Then also, I'm not sure about, they talked about a core length, which was 43, which I'm not sure about that. But PSA for 7 years pretty much stayed at 0.01. As January of this year, it jumped to 0.14. Then in April to 0.19, and then this month it jumped again to 0.59. So I've had doubling 2 times in a row on PSA. And the last time was at Duke, which last week was my last visit to Duke. I had a CT scan done and also a bone scan, both of which came back negative. And we have already scheduled in November to do a PET scan. And not hopefully, but we're waiting for the PSA to rise. So what we assume is there will show up on the PET scan. So that's kind of a synopsis of where I am at this point.
Okay, so so you sort of fall fair and square into recurrent disease.
Yes.
Would that be a fair summary?
Yes. That has actually been in some of the, I think at least 2 of my post appointments that they have mentioned that's probably where I stand right now.
Okay, excellent. And who are you seeing at Duke?
Dr. Armstrong.
Okay. I think I've heard his name, but I don't think I know him. I don't know anybody who has seen him. So he's a medical oncologist, I assume, a GU med onc?
Yes, he is working with Dr. George. Dr. George is head of that department, and then Dr. Armstrong is his associate or assistant.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so we know Dan George, and Dan George knows us pretty well. We've had several people see Dan, and he helps us out when we have difficult cases. Sometimes we ship those cases over to him. He's been very good to us at Answer Cancer. So, you know, if appropriate, you can always mention our name, and we've been very, very grateful to him over the years. He's a terrific doc. So anybody that he is mentoring is probably going to be pretty good. So I would say that feel good that you're in those hands. So the first issue I think that probably we would want to talk a little bit about with you is scanning. What is on your mind? Are you still with us? I see your mic. I see your microphone. Oh, there you come back. Your microphone's back on.
Okay, there. Yeah, yeah. I lost you there for a couple of minutes.
Okay. So let me just repeat. Did you hear what we said about Dan George?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
From
So
what I understand, I've got two good friends. One for George, the other is Armstrong. So I think they're both cut from the same cloth.
right. So George is a really good guy, and he knows us. I think we'd like to talk to you a little bit about scanning. But what is on your mind? What would you like to address with us?
Well, I guess what I'm kind of feeling my way through with a couple of guys that have both gone to Duke and trying to see, what they've been through and kind of to assess what possibly I'm looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do we have anyone, let me just see, do we have anyone on the call today that's been through Duke? I don't think so. I don't think anyone on this call has been at Duke. But we do have guys, and I'd be happy to connect you to some of those people. In the meantime, Len, do you want to go through some of the issues around scanning and rescanning and types of scans so that we can help Mike ask the right questions when he goes in to see Dan Armstrong next time?
Okay, well, the field of scanning is dramatically improving from month to month. They're coming up with new radio tracers that are more sensitive and in some cases easier to work with than the older radio tracers that they use for scanning. Right now, are you able to hear me, Mike?
I'm losing. I'm going to move to a different point and get out of this room because evidently it's not doing well.
Okay, I'll wait for you to move.
Yeah, I think, is this better?
Well, we've been able to hear you. You can hear me now?
I can now, yes.
Yeah. So as I was saying, there have been fairly dramatic improvements in the sensitivity of scans for prostate cancer. And hey, there's Rick. And that's good news because the more sensitive the scan, particularly when the PSA is very low like yours, the greater the likelihood that they'll be able to find where the lesions are. And one that's FDA approved already is called
Axumin.
Axumin is the trade name, thank you. Fluciclovine. And that was just approved about a year or two ago. But since then, there are a lot of PSMA, prostate-specific membrane antigen, radio tracers that are more sensitive than the Axumin. However, you may have some difficulty with reimbursement since they're not FDA approved just yet. And you may need to get yourself into clinical trial. Duke, of course, is the perfect place for you to be going because I'm sure they'll be able to, or even recommend that you get the most sensitive scan available today. And so it's always good if they know where the lesions are. It can help them to come to a treatment choice or decision and can help you as well.
Yeah, right now, I think the two options, depending on the number of lesions, if there's only a few, we're talking about radiation. If there are more than that, then hormone therapy was my other option.
And who discussed those options with you?
It was Dr. Armstrong.
And did he discuss those as if they were mutually exclusive? In other words, you do one or you do the other, or did he discuss them as both?
I think what we've done, that was pretty much what he discussed last week. But I think what he's looking at is waiting till November and seeing maybe a little bit more emphasis on what we're dealing with before he considers maybe more options.
Well, I'd like to add a couple of things, and I also want to throw this open because I'm sure some of the other guys have thoughts on this. The first thing is I just want to make sure you understand what this PSMA scan is. Is this terminology familiar to you?
No, not that. No.
So let's just take a moment to explain that. PSMA stands for prostate-specific membrane antigen. And it's an antigen that shows up on all prostate cells, healthy or not healthy. It also shows up on some other cells in the body that have nothing to do with the prostate, in some just one other place. Not really sure, nobody really knows why, but it does show on all prostate cells. And so it's a very useful tool for screening because it allows us to light up any prostate cells anywhere in the body. And as you know, when prostate cancer metastasizes, it means that prostate cells get into parts of the body that you wouldn't expect them to be. And so the beauty is that we can find and see by sending certain tracers to those prostate cells, we can get them to light up, and we can see where you have unwanted prostate cells, which is the same thing as saying we can see where you have metastatic prostate cancer. So, and this is technology that has only been more widely used in the last few years. It's used for scanning and it's also used for treatment. In your case, we're talking about using it for scanning, and it's usually paired with a radioactive element called gallium-68. So what ideally you're looking for is a gallium-68 PSMA scan. There are other elements that it's paired with. NIH is doing something. One of my, Len or Jake, maybe you can just pull up that NIH trial, and that's a trial you would be eligible for.
Okay.
And so you could go to NIH and you could get a PSMA scan there. You know, the threshold for the more, the higher your PSA, the more likely you are to see something.
Right, that's what I understand.
Right. Now, below 0.2, you probably not going to see anything at all. That's the general wisdom. At about 1 or higher, you're probably going to get a decent scan. Between 0.2 and 1, not quite sure. Could be good, could be bad, really depends. The concern, if it were me personally, the concern I would have was how long should I wait before I start going on hormone therapy? Because the likelihood is you're going to have to go on hormone therapy, whatever they do.
All right.
Yes, they can zap the lesions if they see the lesions, but we know that targeting lesions is rarely successful in terms of long-term management of the disease.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard numbers of around 10%, and I have to say, I don't think in all the years I've been doing this, I've ever known anyone who has really gotten much time out of zapping or where it's been zapped and it's never come back again.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of gets into a bit of a game of whack-a-mole, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not something that you can pin a lot of hope on.
Okay.
So I don't think you're going to avoid some type of hormone therapy. What we do know is, because there's been research studies that have shown this, that the earlier men with recurrent cancer start hormone therapy, the more likely they are to get more successful long-term management. Possibly with the option, as Len will tell you, of fairly long periods when they don't have to take anything.
All right.
So for somebody like yourself, don't necessarily think that you will be on continuous hormone therapy now and for the rest of your time. That may not be the case. It may be, but it may not be.
Okay.
So I think a couple of things here. One, maybe Len can tell you a little bit about how he's been able to get off for a period of time. Two, some people might want to talk to you about different scan options. And three, maybe we can just give you some positive vibes that you got a very long road ahead of you and a very long life ahead of you with a lot of options.
Well, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, so who wants to jump in first?
Rick, I'll jump in and just bring to Mike's attention the chat box where I put in that NIH clinical trial. I put in the clinical trial number.
Okay.
Have you ever searched clinicaltrials.gov, Mike?
No, I have not.
You have not? Okay, well, you're going to see, when are you going to see your doctor next?
I'm not supposed to see him until mid-November.
Oh, okay.
Which
You
I
might
can.
want to just write, I don't know if you can capture what I wrote in the chat box. I copy and paste it or just write it down and then go to clinicaltrials.gov in your browser and then enter in that clinical trial number, and it will bring up information on that trial where it's generally right now considered the most advanced radio tracer. It's that very alphabet soup there, 18F DCFPYL. And that will pick up the kind of low PSA lesions that you have, or at least the low PSA that you have. And yeah, I guess you could always, call your doctor, even though you don't have an appointment. Tell him you're interested in the trial, and get his opinion on that.
Okay.
But the other thing Rick was talking about is that my case is a little different than yours. I did not have a prostatectomy. I had radiation therapy and hormone therapy. And then I went on a drug holiday from the hormone therapy. After a while, my PSA was rising just as yours has been rising. And my oncologist said, I have seen cases where the PSA can rise following first line therapy to about the level of 0.5, where you are right now, and then it just kind of plateaus for a while. I said, how long? He said, could be indefinitely. So, that's just something to consider. Again, something to talk about with your doctor. See, maybe you want to have monthly PSAs for a while to see if it's changing at all. And if it's not, maybe you don't want to do anything. Okay. Or, you can enroll yourself in this clinical trial. And when you bring up the trial on clinicaltrials.gov website, it'll tell you who the contact person is. It's a woman named Yolanda. I looked into it myself. And you can contact her and she'll get back to you and let you know if you are a candidate for the trial.
Okay.
And anybody else want to add anything? Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rick, Joel here. I just talked to Yolanda 3-4 days ago at NIH because you had recommended that same clinical trial to me about 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. And they're still accepting people, but they wouldn't take my case because I'm now at 0.3, and they're limiting the trial to 0.5 and above, which of course Mike would qualify for. And the reason being is like there's 300 people waiting in line that have been that are 0.5 or above, and they only get, for some reason, NIH only gets like 6 to 8 doses a month, she tells me, and they have to divide those doses between initial people who have never been treated for prostate cancer, people who have biochemical recurrence, and people who have advanced prostate cancer. So they're not doing that many per month. So I said, well, I'll talk to you again when I reach 0.5. And she says, yeah, it's going to be a while yet. And so, because even if I do qualify, it may take a while before they can give me the treatment. And that's strictly a scan, she tells me. It's not on the diagnostic side. It's not on the treatment side. It's strictly on the it's on the diagnostic side. It's not on the treatment side. It's strictly a scan. She says all you do, all we give you is a picture. And according to Alicia Morgan's, I just listened to one of her conference videos today, as a matter of fact. And according to her, 0.5 and above, you should be able to get a 65 to 70% chance of finding the cancer. But below that, it's less. So that's what I know about NIH. I tried to get in, but I couldn't get in because they've limited now to 0.5. It's even though their webpage says 0.2.
Okay. Well, let's first of all, hopefully this is all very helpful to you, Mike.
It definitely is.
So which is exactly what we want it to be. Well, go ahead.
What I was going to say, I don't want to be led down the primrose path like I was 7 years ago, and that a lot of that's my fault because I didn't study enough to find out more information. So I don't want that to happen this time. I want to be a little more proactive.
Well, I think that given where you are, you'll get good treatment and you will be proactive. I mean, is anyone else concerned about the disease coming back and waiting to go on hormone therapy? Guess I'm on my own here. Maybe Dr. Armstrong is right, but I do know, and I have seen, and I will try and dig them up for you when I'm a little snowed now because I've been away for a month and I just got back yesterday. But I'm certain that I've seen research that says that the earlier you get onto androgen deprivation therapy, the better the treatment is. Does that ring a bell with anybody else?
Yes, I heard that also.
I have
Me too, Rick.
So, you know, I don't know that I would want to wait several months before starting androgen deprivation therapy. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Mike, but it's inevitable. And we're here and we'll support you through it. And you may be one of these lucky guys that it doesn't affect. You may be one of these unlucky guys that it affects a lot. Did I send you the pamphlet on hormone therapy?
No, I haven't gotten that.
If any of you guys have that, oh wait a minute, maybe I can do it. I'm sort of, it's a little difficult for me to, I'm talking to my co-presenters now, it's a little difficult for me today because I'm working with two different computers. So normally I can just cut and paste something, put it straight in, but because I'm still working with two different computers, I can't just cut something and throw it in. Do any of you have handy the UCSF link?
I might be able to find it on my computer, but Rick, I just want to let Mike and anyone else know that I actually now pasted in an active link that will take them to clinicaltrials.gov and bring up that NIH trial.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Glenn, thank you.
I'd actually emailed it to, well, I did to Mike because I can't move that link from one computer to the other. That's where I'm having a little bit of difficulty. But let me see, I might be able to, if you can't find it, let me know. Send me a message, Len, and we'll get that over to Mike as well. But you know, I think I'd be wanting to talk to him about what's the rationale for waiting to go on to ADT, Mike.
Well, yeah. I guess really the only thing he told me was, you know, that would eliminate you having hot flashes during the fall. But yeah, that's not really a good premise to make that decision on.
No.
But
you know, and if you do start to have hot flashes, we've got some clinical cures, we've got some old wives cures, we've got a few things we can suggest to you to get you through them. But you know, I mean, that to me is not a good reason.
No, you know, and I think the side effects, no matter what they are, still don't outweigh not starting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think I'd be proactive. If you want to be proactive, I think the starting place is to get back with Armstrong and say, hey, you know, why am I waiting? And can I get a PSMA scan? And, you know, what about this this 18F scan, or do you have a gallium scan at Duke that you're doing? You can look under clinicaltrials.gov, and you can see if there are any trials being run at Duke as well. But I think that's probably where I'd be going. And if you really want to wait until, you know, I understand his rationale that before he puts you onto the ADT, he'd like to know where your disease is, but that's just such a difficult balance. Right. And given that, as Joel just mentioned, we seem to think that once you get over 0.5, there's a good 70 to 80% chance that we'll see something. And you know, same thing is backed up by the NIH. You're at a point right now where if we could get you into an 18F or a PSMA trial, there's a good chance they'd see anything, and you don't have to be waiting anymore, and you can start your ADT.
Yes, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Anyone else want to add any thoughts for Mike?
Rick, I put in a link to the UCSF hormone therapy guide
Oh,
pamphlet.
thanks, Len. That's great.
If it isn't an active link, then just copy and paste it into your browser.
Okay.
I'm not sure it was active. I can try pasting it in again, see what happens here. Oh yeah, here, this looks active.
Did it work?
Let's see.
You can click
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, that's an active link now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you can take a good read of that pamphlet, Mike.
Okay.
I actually wrote the first draft of that about 8 years ago. It's been rewritten a few times since. But I think what it's going to do is give you a good feel of what to expect.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and one of the big problems when men go on hormone therapy is that nobody takes the time to explain to them what to expect.
Right. Yeah.
So, to be forewarned is to be forearmed, and we can start working with you on that. You'll keep coming back to us and we'll help you.
That sounds great.
Okay. So anyone else on this call want to speak with Mike? Is there anyone else who who's faced recurrence relatively recently who's on the call? No? Quiet bunch today. I can't.
Healthy bunch, I guess. No
A
reason.
healthy bunch, yeah. I can't seem to get anything out of anybody. No one else gotten faced recurrence in the last 12 months?
Well, Rick, this is Jay. I have, I guess, depending on timing, and I was gonna, if there's time, ask a couple questions about
Sure, there'll be
getting
time.
back on. That may affect what Mike does and not. I just don't want to step on his time right now. But in regards to going back onto treatment, hormone treatment, I have done that recently, and I'm second guessing it actually. And again, I don't want to get into my story right now unless we finish with Mike, but it may give him some other insight as well. So,
Okay.
If Mike can stick around, I'd be happy to share it a little bit later.
Right.
Sure.
So stick around, Mike. There'll be some relevant discussions. All
Okay.
right. Well,
That sounds great.
since we've probably got a few things to talk about with some of you who are online, let's just move on. Let me run down and see who would like some time. Dennis, would you like to talk about anything today?
Yeah, I'll need not too long, couple of minutes or so.
Okay. Jake, would you like to?
No, I would like to just thank Len for doing a great job for the last month. He really has been awesome.
Okay. And I'll endorse.
The check's in the mail, Jake.
Thank you. I need it.
Okay, well, I've got a few things to say, and I'll probably say them before we get to everybody, but that was one of the things that was on my list. Len, anything you'd like to say?
No, thank you, Rick.
Brian, how about you? How those Cubs doing, Brian?
Oh, they're doing fabulous, actually.
Good. Good. I got to tell you, man, I went to Lord's Cricket Ground to watch a cricket match, and I was telling the guy sitting behind me that I was at Wrigley Field just a couple of months before that. So there was 20 odd thousand people at Lord's Cricket Ground. It was one of those 3-hour games, and I tell you, you Americans would love that 3-hour cricket, because they scored about 400 runs in 3 hours. It's perfect for America. Okay, enough of that. So, Ed, would you like to talk to us tonight?
No, I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Jay, I know you have some stuff. Joe Blanchette, would you like to say anything tonight?
Yeah, I have some questions. Thank you.
Okay. Les, how about you?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Okay. And Rich Jackson, do you have anything that you'd like to discuss tonight?
Things are fairly quiet on my part of the world. I'll just hang out and invite everybody to the call tomorrow night. But
Oh yeah, go on. Do a quick promo, man.
we've got the Inner Conversation tomorrow night, same time, same channel, or actually same channel, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and regular times on out to the West Coast. And we'll be dealing with the emotion of mad tomorrow night, and anger and upset and things you feel whenever you have recurrent or your PSA is going the wrong direction. At least give you a chance to vent a little bit, discuss it. But we deal with the emotional side of the house. Be happy to have anybody that cares to stop by. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can recommend that call. It's a men-only call, and the guys on there are a little wacky. Just want to give you a heads up. The call can get a little raunchy at times. Is that fair? Is that fair to say, Jake and Rich?
It is casual bar fare. We do offer peanuts and chicken wings, but it is a men's only call, so occasionally the medical terms are used and occasionally they're forgotten in the heat of battle.
But I do recommend it. It's a good call, and it's open to men with all cancer. So if you have any friends that are feeling some emotions about having been diagnosed with any type of cancer and they don't know where to express it, this is a really good place to do that. Most of the guys have prostate cancer. That's because we just haven't done a good enough job reaching out across the board. But yes, thank you for mentioning it, Rich. I really appreciate you doing that. That's a joint partnership with ourselves and the Reluctant Brotherhood, with ANCAN and the Reluctant Brotherhood. All right, let's dive in with Dennis. There's some alliteration there, Dennis. How'd you like that?
What was that, Rick?
I said I got a little bit of alliteration in there. Dive in with Dennis.
Okay. The last couple of weeks, I was having this problem of diarrhea, bloating, gas, on and off, recurring, it seemed to be responsive to stuff like Imodium or Mylanta. But as soon as I stopped those things, it started up again. So first thing I started to look, well, it's either going to be food, and I kind of talked about it on the last call a little bit. I thought maybe it might be food, but or was it something possibly related to my treatments? The Lupron, the Zytiga, prednisone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did find out, there is a occurrence of diarrhea for people on Zytiga. I did find this article where a study was done, and they measured the number of people getting, of course, the highest amount of them showed up right away when they started it. But there was a fairly high percentage, like 13%, I think, or 14% of people reporting incidents of diarrhea after between 6 months, 12 months period of time. Plus, they had this thing for all different time ranges.
Right.
So just wondering if that was it, because then you look at the prednisone and what some of the side effects of the prednisone, and they talk about avoiding like stressful situations. I guess physical, mental, things like that, because you're not necessarily replacing all of the androgens that the Zytiga is taking away with the prednisone. Mm-hmm. And so I put myself through some fairly stressful situations back when I was out on the way to California and there and back. So I think these things may have been related.
Time out, Dennis. These were not stressful situations with you driving your Porsche at more than 100 miles an hour between here and California, were they?
Actually, not between here and California, but once I was in California, yes.
I thought that might
I
be how you
visited
stressed yourself.
I went to the Porsche Driving Experience Center in LA, where they have a road course and they have opportunity to drive your choice of various Porsches on the course for various amounts of money, of course.
I see.
So after several times running around this course, of course you do it with an instructor next to you.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, the course is very technical and it speeds up to 110 miles an hour on the road course. And of course, there's lots of blind corners and blind going over the hills and stuff like that. So by the time and this was a 90-minute thing I did. And by the time I finished that 90 minutes, I felt like I had just been beat to hell. I was physically, mentally exhausted from this stuff that I did years ago with no problem. But so I'm thinking that, and of course the stressful drive from LA, getting out of LA and back to Arizona. So, but I just wanted to share that with folks that there's things, as much as you feel like you're feeling good and you're on this stuff, there are things that you probably shouldn't be doing that you used to do before diagnosis and treatments and stuff. At least that's my takeaway from it.
So Dennis, when you did stress yourself in this way, aren't you proud of me for recognizing how you induced stress into your life?
Yes.
When you did stress yourself in this way, did you notice that the bloating and the fecal incontinence were worse?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems till I got to California and ran through this experience. So that started, but it could have been food. But I think with the prednisone, probably reduces the immune system ability to handle some of this stuff, and just makes you a little more vulnerable.
So my question, and this pertains to me particularly, is have you discussed this with your docs, and are there any medicines that they recommend that could mitigate this if you find yourself in that situation?
Just it was the standard Imodium for the diarrhea, and any antacid, anti-gas, over-the-counter stuff, and they worked. They worked a little bit temporarily, but this thing seemed like it had to run its course over a period of about 2 weeks. So I'm about 2 days now, and I'm knocking on wood, and was feeling much better, no incidents. I also had this feeling of like a mouthful of cotton. I'd like or sour tongue or whatever you would have. That was the other symptom that I had, but no fever. Fatigue, I did have more fatigue than I usually did, but it's all subsided now, and I think it does. These treatments they're powerful stuff. You look at the size of that little tiny prednisone tablet, and what is and it has some powerful effects. Right.
Well, I mean, this is very helpful information for a lot of men that are taking abiraterone Zytiga and have been on it for some time. Is this situation familiar to anyone else on the call? Or does anyone else have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask Dennis?
I have a comment, Rick. This is Jake. I'm not on Zytiga or prednisone, so that's why I didn't comment last week, Dennis, when you mentioned it. I am on Xtandi, and I do have occasional diarrhea. I've never been driven a Porsche, and I've never been to California. That would stress me out completely, either one of those, as Rick probably knows and Len knows. But anyway, so only thing I can think of is that it is the Xtandi, even though I've been taking it over a year. I'll go for several days, nothing, and then suddenly it's don't even go 5 feet from the bathroom.
Yeah, that's how mine was. It was unpredictable, so I went immediately to wearing Depends instead of my regular underwear, because there are a number of instances where I even after I was at home, I'd be one room away from the bathroom, and it was impossible to hold it back.
Yeah. So I don't know, for what it's worth, Xtandi may be causing a similar problem. I just don't know. I haven't tried the Imodium, but maybe I will.
Yeah, two of them after the first incident, and then you can use one if you get another incident.
Is that a
But
pill?
it works very good.
Is that a pill or liquid?
It's a pill, pretty small one, very tiny one.
It's also sold as a solution, Jake and Dennis.
Okay.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe one works better than the other. I guess it depends on the individual. You'd have to try it out. But those symptoms that you were talking about, Dennis, those would be the side effects of the Imodium, right? That's what you were saying?
Yeah. No, the side effects that I had were the side effects from the Zytiga in combination with the prednisone. They each have their own side effects. The study results that I read was just about the Zytiga alone, and the number of incidents across a different times elements of people having diarrhea.
No, but I meant you mentioned dry mouth and fatigue, which are side effects of taking Imodium.
That was not the result of the Imodium as far as I could tell. I had that before I even started with the Imodium.
Okay.
And did you mention a different drug, an alternative to Imodium, Len?
Well, I was talking about another type of formulation, a liquid formulation of Imodium, but there is another medication that's prescription only, which is for diarrhea, which you could talk to your physician about, Dennis, if you feel the Imodium's not doing a good enough job. And unfortunately, I don't recall the name of it at the moment. I could try and find it.
Yeah. Oh, the Imodium worked fine. Once it did the trick for me. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So any other comments before we? All right. I had actually said I wanted to say a couple of things, so let me just insert them now. The first thing is that I do want to thank Jake and Len for covering me whilst I was away. Those calls at 1 a.m. in the morning are a little difficult. And actually, one time I did try to get on. I was up really late, and I just came on too late. But they are hard. Ironically, today I had an inquiry from a woman about a woman joining our breast cancer call in the UK, which she's very welcome to do, but 1 a.m. is a tough time. But thank you very much. Thanks for covering me, and hopefully everything went well. The other thing that I have to talk about, and it probably won't be the last time I talk about it, is losing Rob, which has been very difficult. Not because we didn't know, and I in particular knew because 8 weeks ago Rob called me and said, I'm just getting really tired. I just don't have it in me to keep fighting anymore. And that was 2 or 3 weeks before I went away. And, when I heard him say that, my heart dropped, because when people tell you that, when you've been in this game for a while and people tell you that, you know that the end is coming. Either because they recognize it, or just because they are tired, and when your will goes, it's hard to keep the end at bay. And then I actually spoke to Rob a couple of times the day that I left. I'm trying to remember what we were talking about, but we spoke. I think I just called him to see how he was, and he told me he felt like the Michelin Man because he had so much fluid in his body. And the reason for that was because his kidneys were not working. Rob had a very strange type of disease, and his metastasis had generally been soft tissue. I mean, he was diagnosed very young. He was diagnosed at 43 or 44. And it had always been soft tissue, and he got 4 years out of abiraterone. But along the way, he had an artificial sphincter put in. He had stents in his kidneys because his kidneys weren't working well. And I think that just over time, and with the radiation and the other treatments that he was going through, his kidneys just got so beat up that they weren't able to get rid of the fluid. And so he was 40 to 50 pounds. He was carrying about 40 to 50 pounds, and they tried him on some drugs, and he dropped about 20 pounds, but it just didn't seem to be working. What was working was the lutetium-177 that dropped his PSA down from well over 1,000 to, I think I'd have to go back and look, but I think it dropped it down to under 750, and he was looking at possibly doing, he wanted to do another treatment, and he had parameters set so that he could go back down to Houston this month. But his PSA had gotten as high as 1540. I'm just looking at my notes here. And I think he got it down in August to 750. So it was clearly having the right effect, but the rest of his body couldn't handle it. And so I spoke to him a couple of times whilst I was away, and then we set up a time for me to call him because, of course, the 6-hour difference didn't help much, and then I couldn't make it, and I didn't speak to him the whole week. And funny enough, I was out to dinner with my dear friends who I was staying with, and we were talking. They asked me how he was doing, and I said, I haven't spoken to him. And I got home, and I found the email from Patty that he passed the night before. I wanted to call Patty today, but I just didn't get round to it, but I'll try and call her tomorrow. The funeral arrangements will be in Minneapolis. I definitely plan on attending. I will be there, even if it means that we don't know the dates, and if it happens to be the weekend of PCRI, then I won't be going to PCRI. So I'll keep you guys posted. But I mean, that's the history. I want to say a few words about Rob because he was incredible. I met him back in 2010 when I first started attending the Reluctant Brotherhood calls. I'm not really sure that Rob was, how should I say this? He participated in the Reluctant Brotherhood calls, and they were probably closer to the inner conversation type of call than they are to this call. They weren't very technical. I think he enjoyed them. But once I got involved and we started talking about technical things, he he seemed to participate quite a bit more. And I met him for the first time physically, along with my dear friend Jerry, when he and Patty came out to California to visit some wineries, because he was a bit of a winophile, an enophile, and we just struck up a really good friendship, and he dropped off the calls, but I just kept talking to him, and then when John Teisberg decided that he wanted to go in a different direction, it seemed like it was the right time to set up a 501c3, and Rob had retired, but he'd retired from being he had retired from being a CFO. So he had a lot of administrative experience. So he said, well, we'll do it here and I'll take care of it. And so essentially I was kind of the ideas guy and the front man, and Rob has been he's been the glue that's held everything together behind the scenes, even though none of you have heard him on these calls. I think he's maybe been on the call once in 2 years. I cannot overstate, I should say. I can't overstate how much he's done to create Answer Cancer. And he's also given me a huge amount of support. And anytime I have a difficult situation, I don't know how to handle a situation or an individual or what have you, the first person I call was Rob. And even as recently as the last month or two, where I've had sticky situations and I call him up and we talk it through. So I'm going to miss him a huge amount. And I just don't think it's fair. I keep asking myself why such a good man is taken so early. Because he didn't have a bad bone in his body. He was very giving. He was an incredible family man. He had a wonderful relationship with Patty. He's got 3 adult boys. And he was also incredibly brave in how he faced this disease. He knew it was inevitable, that he wasn't going to be around that long. And he never shirked from that. He always would say to me, he was a pretty religious man, and he made a pilgrimage trip to Israel and Jordan last year. And he wrote to me a couple of times when he was on that trip. And I would say at least twice or 3 times in the last month to 2 months, he said that he's made peace with his maker and he's ready to go. And now he's gone. So that's just what I wanted to say. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything about Rob, but I just feel, we have an unbelievable debt of gratitude to him. And I'm not sure what we'll do on this call to commemorate him, but we'll do something. Maybe we'll name a room after him or something like that. But he's always going to be with us. He's certainly always going to be with me, because if I have a tough situation, I'll still be asking him what to do, and I'll see what I can hear and what I can learn. So, does anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, Rick, I can't. I didn't know. I didn't know Rob nearly as well as you did, but I did deal with him on numerous occasions. On GoToMeeting, he would help me. We'd have him set up a personal meeting, and he'd help me walk through things, and via email or phone calls. He was always helpful. And you've had me trying to get me involved in some of the things that he was doing. And Tanya and Rich and everybody else, we're all taking up pieces of what he used to do all by himself.
Right.
His fingerprints are everywhere on ANCAN. You're the public face, as you said, but Rob was the backbone.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. And like you said, he was a lovely guy. I tried to not talk to him in the last month or two because I knew he was going downhill and I knew he didn't want to be bothered. But yeah, can't add a whole lot. It's just fucking sad.
Yeah. I mean, he was the glue that held us all together. And nobody realized, not even, I mean, I had no idea how much work there was to keep this all going until Rob said to me at the beginning of this year, we've got to make transition plans to move the administration along. And I know some of you are aware of that. I know that Jay at one point spoke to Rob, and then Rob said, no, I don't want to piecemeal this out. And it had nothing to do with you, Jay, and I think you would have done a great job, but Rob really wanted to find one person to try and take everything on, as it turned out. We found a wonderful lady who has a connection to cancer, who has taken over as secretary-treasurer and now joined the board. But we didn't expect her to do everything. I mean, Rich Jackson's running MailChimp for us. Jake's running YouTube for us. I don't know. There's other things more than that, but every little bit he was doing all himself. He was fantastic. Anybody else want to add anything?
Well, I probably have nothing new to add to what Rick and Jake have already said. I only got to know Rob after I joined the board, and I interacted with him at our board meetings. I don't believe I ever, by the time I came along, I don't recall him being on these calls. But he immediately struck me as a very smart guy, a real gentleman. Always, never knew the guy was gravely ill because he always had the most pleasant demeanor. And as Rick and Jacob already said, I also had no idea how much work was involved in all of the secretary treasurer functions that he did for NCAN. And the fact that, he could have just said to Rick, I'm too sick to do this anymore. You're going to have to try and find someone else.
Yeah.
He took the responsibility to choose the right person and to carefully train them. And that was very selfless, I think.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't seen Rob, I would urge you all to go to myprostatecancerroadmap.com or to look on our own website and to find the video. There are two videos, I think. He was a poster boy for Janssen Oncology for abiraterone, literally a poster boy. They made at least two videos of him and Patty, and they're lovely videos, and they really captured his spirit and his essence, including seeing him trout fishing in his waders and goodness knows what, riding a bicycle. It was great. It was really, it's really a nice video. So I'd like, again, I'm strapped here working on two computers. Otherwise I'd post the link in there for you, but the link's on our website. And I think under videos and clips. And so you can go to ancan.org and see it in videos and clips, or you can go to my prostate cancer roadmap. And we're going to be speaking with Janssen at PCRI, and I'm sure that they will be pretty upset that he's no longer around. I got a wonderful email from Todd Seals, who was the other guy that was was the poster boy for abiraterone. And he's been on abiraterone now, I think he told me now for 10 years or 12 years, pretty amazing. And, he was very upset. He said he knew that Rob was pretty sick and he'd spoken to him in the last couple of months, but he was shocked. So, so that's that. The last thing I just want to mention briefly is PCRI, because we keep talking about it. We will have a table out there. Len will be there, Peter will be there. I hope I will be there unless I have to go to Minnesota during that time. Ken Mason, who is one of our moderators on the low risk call, will be there. And I would encourage all of you on this call who have not attended to consider attending if you can. I know it's a little late in the day, but it's a very good, it's really the only patient-centric prostate cancer meeting in the calendar, other than the other PCRI meetings during the year, but they're much smaller than this one. This one, there'll be over 1,000 men there, or men and caregivers. And they'll be covering a lot of different topics, from active surveillance right through to advanced treatment. There are some good speakers this year. I think, I can't remember, is Gene Kwong going to be there again this year, Len?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's Brian's doc. And my doc, Mac Roach, is going to be speaking. And there's going to be a lot of good people. So I don't agree with everything that's always said there, but I can tell you that it's a lot of good information. There are a lot of interesting booths and manufacturers to stop by and talk about treatments, and it's worthwhile. And if that doesn't catch your attention enough, then ANCAN will be hosting a reception. Sad to say, not with free booze, it's a cash bar, but with free food. And if the food from last year is anything to go by, you'll be able to comfortably stuff your face. And if you don't, then you'll just come with us to the Greek restaurant later that night. That's just a short walk up the street. And although Len may divert us to an Italian restaurant, but I would say that the Greek restaurant is very worthwhile. So I would strongly recommend it. We did our best to try and convince Mr. Hannum to join us, but we were unsuccessful. But I will be sending out, probably tomorrow, I'll send out an invitation to everybody, and including an invitation to the, or especially an invitation to the reception. So
I did post a link to the video of Rob where he talked about his experience. I think that's the one you're referring to.
Yeah, thank you very much. And would you put that on Facebook too, please, Jake?
Yep.
Thanks. Thanks. All right, let's Jake Ruckman, you're up.
Okay, just wanted to kind of update you. It's been in and out for a few of these recently. Had another PSA and another injection last week. PSA continues to go down, although ever so slightly. And I'm kind of wondering if people have gone through this and if it's normal or not. I think I've heard that it may be. This is my second time on hormone treatments. First time I started at a much lower number, like 0.4. And after 2 injections, I was to a non-detect. That was about 18 months ago. This time I started and I was at right at 5.0. And I went from 5.0 down to 0.3, then 0.6, then 0.3, and this last one was 0.2. So like I said, it continues to go down. I really expected this one, if not the one before it, that I would be at a non-detect level, but I'm not there. So I don't know if I'm concerned or not. I'm, kind of in the middle there, not disappointed, but not real happy about it either. I thought I'd be at non-detect. So
Can I just clarify? Can I just clarify something with you? I know
Yes.
that you were in 5. I thought you were at 0.06 last time.
And I missed one in there. I think I missed one of the meetings in there, Rick, or a couple of the meetings to update. In June, I was at 0.06, and then in July, I'm doing monthly Firmagon shots.
Yeah.
I was at in July, I was at 0.03.
And now you're at 0.02. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so why don't you finish? Sorry, I just wanted to, because I think you said 0.3 and 0.2. So I just wanted to make sure everybody hears that you've gone from 5.0 down to 0.3, 0.06 and 0.02. So keep going with your questions and tell us.
And this time around, we did add Erlita to the Firmagon. So again, just an extra dose of something else. I kind of hope that I'd be at a non-detect at this point in time. So I'm going to stay on the monthly Firmagon. This 5th injection last time is when I went on the Lupron, and again, I don't know if it was cumulative effect or a change from Firmagon to Lupron, but I had terrible side effects from that point on. This time, I didn't feel good. I got the injection on a Wednesday. I was fine Wednesday. Thursday, I couldn't do anything. Friday, I got forced to go out. And by Friday night, I was feeling, quite a bit better. I was out Saturday, but got to go golfing Saturday, but that absolutely wore me out. And Sunday and Monday were basically no good for me. So I am struggling with energy level and also just my attentiveness to details and things of that nature. Trying to redo our house here, and got plenty of work, plenty of exercise going on, but just can't get focused anymore.
Right.
And so I'm struggling with that.
So a couple of questions. The Alida, apalutamide, did you start that right at the beginning when you got your first Firmagon shot, when you're at 5.0, or have you just started it now? I wasn't sure.
No, I started that in May with my first shot.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
The second thing I want to say to you is that 0.02 is pretty much undetectable. Most people would consider that to be undetectable. So I don't want you to think that that's not undetectable. I mean, 10 years ago, that would have been considered undetectable.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that if you can maintain that level, you're doing, I mean, I'm not a doc, but I would be pretty happy with it if I could maintain that level. It's 0.02 is good, so don't be worrying and beating yourself up on that score, because it just ain't worth it. As far as the side effects are concerned, you're the first guy that we've had who's been on the apalutamide, so I really don't know too much about the side effects, although I've heard that the profile is not quite as bad as abiraterone and Zytiga. I think it's fantastic that you went out and played a round of golf. That it knocked you out for a couple of days is not so good, but the more often you do it, and maybe you have to find the right number of holes to play. I'm going to ask Dennis career about how he eased himself back into playing 18 holes after he took time off.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I had to ease myself back into it after my chemo, and just started out with 9 holes. Matter of fact, the course that we usually play at, I went in and he said, "Oh, I see you're back." Yeah, I'm gonna try and see what I can do here. And he says, "Well, why don't you just go out and play, and if you finish 9 holes, then you can come in and pay me." So they were great, and that's right. I finished the 9 holes the first time, but it was quite tiring. And some of the other things I did is I just show up at the course. The guys were playing, and they're kind of a support group for me also, like my cohorts at golf. And I just go to the putting green or chipping green and just practice my short game and stuff, where I didn't have to expend too much energy. Also, I used a cart. I ride. I play golf. And you can get that even better too if you get ask for a handicap flag, so you can get a little closer to the greens and the tee boxes, so you don't have to walk too far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
And I've been very active. I mean, I just went back on in May, so up until that point, I've been very active, and it's starting. It seems like it's starting to catch up to me now. Like I said, there's been a lot of work around the house I've been doing and things of that nature. But the whole thing kind of leads into my real question, and I don't know if anyone can answer that or not. And my concern is, I did file for Social Security disability the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And if I read everything correctly, that recurrent prostate cancer does not qualify, but metastasized, if it's metastasized, it does qualify for disability. And we went up to, I don't know, 2 or 3.0, whatever on PSA and got a scan, and nothing was detected. Once it got to 5, we went on hormone treatment again. So right now, I don't think I could function in a 9-to-5, 40-hour-a-week job. So I'm struggling between where am I at in regards to, I hate to say, but should I have waited until you could find it metastasized? Has anyone been through the process to say, yeah, you're going to be rejected, no, you're going to be approved, or anything like that? I mean, I'm waiting right now, but I'm just curious on, where to go.
So I'm going to let some other guys talk about this if they would like to, but I'm going to give you some really good hope here. I at least I think so. I think what you're reading with respect to metastasized cancer is on the fast track kind of pre-approved disability. That if you have metastasized prostate cancer, you're a slam dunk. And it takes about 6 or 8 weeks to get approved. If you don't have metastasized prostate cancer, but you have recurrent or you have micrometastasis, you're on hormone therapy, then that does not mean to say that you are not eligible. And I can tell you that from my own personal experience. I was placed on hormone therapy in November of 2006. And by early 2008, I wouldn't say I was a basket case, but I had no energy. I was exercising every day. I'd come home and sleep after I exercised for an hour or so. And I couldn't schedule more than one event for the day. I just didn't have the energy to do it. And friends of mine at the boathouse said to me, you should apply for disability, since I'm not the sort of person that likes to take entitlements. I had been reluctant to do it, but I got to the point where it was clear I couldn't hold down a 9-to-5 job, exactly what you just said. And so I applied, and I was turned down, and I appealed. And I was advised when I appealed to retain a Social Security, a lawyer who specialized in Social Security cases, which I did. There aren't that many, and you need to sort of seek around for them and talk to a couple, find one you like, which is what I did. You'll find that you can actually backdate your claim. So have you actually filed for your disability yet, or you've just decided to do it?
No, I actually did last week. I talked with a person locally and did everything online, and actually went down and handed her a whole bunch of medical records.
Right.
She's going to request more, and she was very, very nice, very cooperative and helpful.
Right.
And they were supposed to have sent them off to the wherever they process it that day. So
right. So I don't know when you put what you put as your if you put your date of diagnosis in there, et cetera, et cetera. In my case, they backdated my number one. They backdated my application or my date of incidence to my date of diagnosis. And number two, they backdated my application a full year. So I was eligible for 12 months of earlier payments. So when the attorney got involved, his fee was a percentage of the past 12 months. And when I got approved, I got a big lump sum amount. And so I want to be sure that you're getting that. And if you're not, you can adjust or amend your application, but you should be eligible to request, if you haven't done so, and you may have done this, but you should be able to request 12 months in arrears.
okay.
Now, what's more significant is your start date, because while they'll only pay for 12 months max in arrears, they'll approve your disability from a much earlier date. And in my case, they approved it, I think, for 24 months before the application. So I was actually eligible for Medicare within 2 months. And that was huge because I was paying about, at the time, 10 years ago, I was paying about $700 a month for my medical insurance, and that dropped to $200 a month.
Okay.
So, or $220 a month. So while I did the same thing as you, I did it all myself, but just make sure that your date of illness is backdated, your date of disability is backdated enough, because you can, I think I started my disability from the date that I first went on to hormone therapy. And you could probably do the same thing even though you came off of it. And also be sure to claim the last 12 months. And if you haven't done that, and you're hearing it here first, then I'm going to tell you exactly what I told some of my other buddies like Jerry Carnelia, God rest his soul, that, we're in for 10%. You can make a big donation to us if you find that you're going to get a big back check. And he did get a big back check, and he did give us some money, which was very, very, very sweet of him. But I'm sort of kidding on that, but I do want you to be sure that you get all that you're entitled to, Jay.
I believe I did go back to my first round of hormone treatment, which was just over 2 years ago. So
Okay, good. Good, good, good. And then, you know, hopefully your disability might even be before that, your date of disability, so that you can be immediately eligible for SSI, for Social Security, yeah. Excuse me, Medicare.
Well, on the insurance side, right now, it doesn't affect me a whole lot just because I am not working and my wife's not making a lot of money, just out there a little bit. So I'm on the Obamacare plan, but who knows how long that lasts.
Yeah, but you know, the difference is that you're probably going to get better coverage much cheaper if you are eligible for Medicare.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't cost you, they'll take $134 or $35 or whatever it is out of your check for the Medicare, and the supplementary insurance shouldn't run more than about $150. And so, you know, and for most people, that's less than what they're paying.
That'd actually be more for me, but.
Okay. Well, then you wouldn't need it. But.
Right. And that's what I kind of was wondering too. If I get on disability and end up on Medicare, then am I not allowed? And that's a whole nother conversation to have my own.
No, you don't have to go on Medicare.
Yeah. Okay. So. Well, that's what I got. I appreciate the information.
I want to encourage you because I was in exactly your situation and I got through, but I did have to do an appeal. And I do recommend if you do an appeal that you get a lawyer involved, even if it costs you something, because there are too many ins and outs and they know how to handle these appeals. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And anybody else want to talk about Social Security or getting the qualifying for the disability prior to age 65?
Rick, would you recommend seeing a lawyer first before even trying for a Social Security disability?
You know, I think that if you get all your dates right, which I was able to do, I can't remember if I talked to a lawyer or not first, I may have done. As long as you get all your dates right, I don't think you need the lawyer until you have to go to the appeal.
Okay. And is the criteria to be on hormone therapy? Is that what you have to be on for them to let you have it?
Well, I think it's not really so much that. I think it is how the hormone therapy affects you. And, you know, if you can justify to them that the hormone therapy affects you in such a way that you can't hold down a full-time job, then you'll get it. And I was able to do that. And it was true because I said to them, look, my job right now is exercise, because that's the only way I can manage this treatment. And if I exercise for an hour and a half every day, I don't have the energy to be able to hold down a full-time job. I've got to sleep afterwards. And, you know, maybe I could work 4 hours, but then I've got to find a job that could. And they bought that.
Got you. I appreciate it. That's a good point.
You know, it's not so much the drugs you're on, it's how those drugs affect you.
Rick, is that on initial diagnosis and treatment, or is that on reoccurrence? Rich Jackson.
Yeah, in my case, it was on initial diagnosis, but I don't think it makes any difference if it's initial diagnosis or recurrence. Okay. But the one thing that you guys all have to be aware of is that once you go on there, on your SSI, you've got to know how much you're getting, and you're going to be restricted in how much you can earn. So, you know, unless you're getting it off the books and not reporting it, once you earn over $25,000, I think it is, you have to reduce the amount of SSI that you're taking. So, I mean, I wasn't earning anything outside. At that time, I was starting my advocacy, so most of my time was spent doing my advocacy. Does that answer your question, Rich?
It did. I'm not to that point yet, but it's nice to know information.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, we'll help you when you are at that point. Now, I apologize to the person that's on the telephone that we haven't identified you before, but we do have at least one person on the telephone that we haven't identified. Do we know who that is?
Hey, Rick, John Appler. I joined late. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay, Mr. Appler. It's always good to hear your voice.
Yeah, thanks for the info. I applied myself for Social Security Disability, and I'll follow your game plan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, in your case, John, the big benefit for you would be to get you onto Medicare early and to reduce your your health insurance costs.
Yes, I'm on that now, and it has reduced it, just as you say, by the same percentage. But I like the idea of taking it back to the start of ADT, because that is when our ability to work is impaired. So I'll ping you later about your lawyer's name.
Sure, yeah, I can find that for you, and he's in. I think he was in Marin, if I remember correctly. I think he was in Marin. He was a very nice guy. I liked him, and so yeah, I'd be happy. I would definitely recommend him. I've just got to dig around and see if I can find. I'll look and see if I can find. I think I know where I can find it, but but I'd be happy to give that to you.
No problem.
Did you have anything you wanted to talk about, John?
No, I did nothing. My update is only I talked to Dr. Agarwal, who is several of our oncologists, and he still believes that 24 months is still kind of the standard, as long as you're tolerating the ADT okay. Otherwise, right. 18 months. Right. I guess that's not really an update. That's kind of his input.
Right. Yeah, you know, I would err on longer rather than shorter. It's just not clear to me. I mean, there are these studies say 18 months is as good as 24, but if you're handling it and you can get yourself through another 6 months, do it. I mean, that's what I did. So, you know, I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm basically telling you that that's what I did. It worked for me. And I am just of the personal belief that the longer is better. Would I stay on for 3 years? I think that's overkill, but I don't think there's anything wrong with staying on for 24 months versus 18.
Yep, will do.
Rick, I'd like to ask Jay a question, follow-up question. Wasn't clear. Jay, was there any gap between your taking Firmagon and then adding in Erlita, or you took them both at the same time?
This time around, this is my second round of hormone treatment. This time around, Erlita was added at the same time I started my Firmagon again.
Okay, because I was just trying to get a sense of what was the contribution of your brain fog from the Erlita itself. But I guess we can't tell, being that you started both at the same time.
Correct. Right now, I feel better. I feel better right now, 5 months in, than I did the last time 5 months in. But at 5 months in, we changed Firmagon to Lupron, and that's when I really seemed to hit a wall. Right. But I feel like I'm getting up against that wall again, and time will tell. Right now, I have no intention of trying Lupron again, though. That's how bad I was the first time around.
Joel Blanchett, I know we still have to come to you, but I just want to give one other piece of experience or advice to Jay, which is that Jay, when I started to feel that brain fog, I was really religious about doing some sort of mental exercise every day. And, you know, whatever tickles your fancy. You know, if you're a numbers guy, spend half an hour doing Sudoku. If you're a word guy, do a crossword puzzle. If you're a card guy, play some bridge online. You know, but whatever it is, do something that makes you concentrate and think and use your memory.
I do that all the time. I am a numbers guy. I love doing that stuff, so that's not an issue at all.
Good. Okay. Okay. All right, Joel. I think you're the last guy up today, so the rest of the time is yours.
All right, I'll try to make it short. Just an update on my, first thing is an update on my situation after my surgery 7 years ago. I've done nothing since then as far as treatment. It took 7 years for my PSA to go from, at the 6-month point after surgery, it went from non-detectable to 0.02, and then it took 7 years to get up to 0.2. And I had 4 3-month readings of 0.2. But in August, the last reading I got jumped from 0.2 to 0.3, which is kind of alarming to me. So it should jump up again to 0.4 on the next 3-month reading. It means I would have doubled. My doubling time would be 6 months, which concerns me. So I guess since I can't get into the NIH trial, I think my next move will be to see the med-onc that you suggested at Johns Hopkins and go from there. And the other issue I have has to do with Agent Orange and Vietnam veterans and VA payments. So you would know better than I would. Are there any Vietnam Agent Orange people in the room today?
I don't know. We have to ask the question. Is anybody else? Is anybody else an Agent Orange veteran? Is anyone else a veteran on this call?
Well, I'm a veteran, but I was never exposed to Agent Orange. Ken Mason possibly was exposed to it. He was investigating that later. He's not on the call today.
Right.
Okay, so
where did you do your service, Jake?
It was all stateside in Texas.
And you were never required to shift barrels.
No.
Okay. Because there's a couple of loopholes in that Agent Orange. I mean, if you were moving barrels around, that's a loophole. If you were in the Navy and you were in the Mekong Delta, that could be a loophole. Even if you never had feet on the ground. But there's no one else that's, is there anyone else on the call that's a veteran?
I am. Rich Jackson.
I thought you were. And where were you, Mr. Jackson?
I'm a Vietnam Air veteran, but never had feet in country.
You didn't, and were you in the Navy?
At the time I was Army.
Okay.
Navy was later.
Okay. So it sounds like not, Joel. Did you have feet on the ground?
Yes, I did. I was there a year, but there's no point in asking my questions about Agent Orange and VA benefits since nobody else has gone through the same process.
Well, I know a little bit about it because very good rest his soul to get his benefit for him, which turned out to be a pretty big benefit. He was getting $4,000 a month and he got a back payment of $48,000. So, and I worked with him in some depth. So I may be able to help you, I may not. Tell me what your questions are.
Okay, well, let me give you a little background. Diagnosed with prostate cancer 2011, January. looked at the internet and found that I could get VA benefits because I was in Vietnam and with Agent Orange. And so I applied immediately. About 3 months later, they started paying me like $2,800 a month, roughly. I had my surgery that August. And after surgery, they kept on paying me until they sent me to a doctor. And the doctor said, answer some questions, but he made a lot of mistakes in answering the questions. So I rebutted him on that. And and so they said, okay, we'll reduce your payments to 60%. Well, 60% is not 60% of 2,800. It was 60% of a formula they have, which gives me about $1,100 a month. And I've been receiving that since then. My question is, since I've gone into biochemical failure right now, would it be a good time to reapply for full benefits? Because they reduced my payments about a year later from 2,800 down to 1,100, and now the payments, because of cost of living increases, now up to above 3,000, a little bit above 3,000. I understand. So would it be a good time for me to use biochemical recurrence to reapply for full benefits? Is my question.
Yeah, well, I think the issue is how disabled they consider you to be. So if you went in there and said, I have 100% erectile dysfunction at this point and I'm incontinent, they probably would give you 100%. Or if you said, I'm now on, I've got recurrence and I've got bone mets, they probably would give you 100%. I think the issue is to what extent does biochemical recurrence make you more disabled? That's above my pay grade. I think one of the things I might suggest you do is reach out to Disabled Veterans of America, because they're pretty good in terms of as an advocacy group, and they're going to have a much better sense because they deal with it across the country and with many different men as to how you should handle your refiling.
Right.
Have you ever talked to them?
Yeah, I used a rep that they have in Virginia. They have reps all around Virginia and other states also, of course. And I filed through the rep initially. And also, I forgot what I wanted to say. But anyway, yes, I did use a rep. And I have a rep that's about 10 miles from me, so I can use them again.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my first port of call. Sometimes, I mean, my experience has been that they're hard to get hold of. I always worked through the office in Sacramento, and it was touch and go whether we could reach them. But once you get them and you start working with them, I think their advice is pretty solid. And they're one of the best advocates with the VA, so that they really have good experience as to when to reapply. And I do think that if your disease has come back, you have a good case to be reassessed. But as to when that should be, I can't tell you. And, you know, the other question I'd be asking them is, how often can I get reassessed? Can I get reassessed annually?
Right. Also, what I meant to say a while ago is that I have been getting up 4 or 5 times a night since I've had surgery, and that has not abated. Matter of fact, lately it's gone up to sometimes 6 and sometimes 7 times a night. So, I think that's why they gave me some benefits, some temporary benefits, or that 60% formula, because it was I was not incontinent, but I was getting up at night often.
Yeah, and you know, that's not what you came on to talk about, but there are drugs you can take that can help you with that.
Okay.
And I can't tell you off the top of my head. Well, maybe I can. Bear with me a second. What they are? I think I've got them. Bookmarked. Let me just see.
Detrol is one, Rick.
Detrol is one definitely, but there's a better one than Detrol, a more recent one that's pretty expensive, but is supposed to be really, really good. Let me see if I can find it.
Can you spell that for me? Detrol? Is that D-E-T-R-O-L?
D-E-T-T-R-O-L, Detrol.
Got it. Thank you.
And the one that's supposed to be great, but it's expensive, but you may be able to get it through the VA, is called Myrbetriq. I'll spell it for you. Myrbetriq.
Yeah, I see that advertised on TV also.
Yeah, it's a good drug, but it's pricey. Now, are you getting your treatment through the VA or not?
No, I have Medicare and TRICARE.
Okay, so usually what happens is, and I don't know with TRICARE, but usually what happens is that if you want to access your drugs through the VA, you have to have a VA doc, and you have to have a VA primary care physician, and you're going to have a VA prostate cancer specialist, some sort of GU med-onc probably.
Okay.
So for example, guys who are on abiraterone, Xtandi, I can't say about Erleada, can get those drugs for $5 or $8 a month or whatever it is.
Right.
And what happens is they work in conjunction with your own doc. So my recommendation to you, especially since you anticipate recurrence, is to start gearing up with the prostate cancer folks at the VA, because there's a good likelihood that you might need them down the road for your drugs.
Got it. Yeah.
And talk to them about some of these drugs that are available, like Detrol or Myrbetriq, to manage your what do they call it, nocturia.
Right. Right.
Joel, Rich Jackson, I'm TRICARE Prime. Are you using Express Scripts?
Yes, I have Express Scripts. Yes, I use both a local pharmacy and a couple local pharmacies and Express Scripts. Yes.
Because what I bumped into with Express Scripts is quite often it depends on how the request is worded, whether
Yes.
they will pick it up or not.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So is that for both Detrol and Myrbetriq? Is that what you're talking about?
Not those specific drugs, but just in general.
Yes.
Sometimes it matters how the doctor words the request or what the doctor's describing your benefits will be on the drug. If Express Scripts will step up to the plate.
Right. I agree with that. I've ran into the same problem. I took Cialis 5 mgs a day as recommended by Dr. Mulhall at PCRI 3 years ago. And all of a sudden, a year later, I couldn't get it anymore because the doctor had not worded it correctly.
And it is requested for penile rehab, not for recreational purposes.
Exactly. Well, I was taking it because of, and as Dr. Mulhall suggested, because of endothelium repair. And it worked real well as far as I was concerned, but I'm not on it anymore because of Express Scripts issues like that, like you just mentioned.
Could be worth getting reworded. Make them say no again.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, and you know, if I don't know enough about how your system works, but I can say that if the request comes from a VA doc, then they know how to word it.
I see. Okay, that's another advantage of having a VA doc then.
Yeah. So I've worked with a bunch of guys that have been treated at UCSF, and then they've also had a side, not side isn't the word that I want, but they've had a VA track going on at the same time, simultaneous VA track.
Okay.
And
Good suggestion.
so I really would get yourself geared up, because God forbid you need one of these expensive drugs more quickly. It's going to save you gobs of money.
Right. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. And somebody just joined us on the phone. Who might that?
This is Sylvester. I'm always late. I apologize to all of you.
Oh, Sylvester, you're so late that the meeting should have finished 10 minutes ago. You wouldn't have even found us.
Well, it sounded like you was on a very interesting subject.
Well, Sylvester, this is recorded. You can listen to the whole session tomorrow.
I certainly will, but I can't listen tomorrow, but I'll do my best to listen soon.
Okay.
I'm going to moderate tomorrow.
Okay. Well, you know it's always a pleasure to have you on the call.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we've run over a little bit because of the discussions about the VA and Agent Orange. I'm glad that that got raised, and I thank you for raising it, Joel, because we don't talk enough about the parallel VA system on these calls. Not so much because of lack of knowledge, because I do know a little bit about it, because I've supported men who have been in the VA system, but I'm certainly no expert. What I do know of one terrific guy in Texas, who was a really excellent VA advocate. If anybody ever needs that, I can connect you. And I do know a little bit about, Agent Orange, as I said, because I helped Jer, God rest his soul, get his benefits. But I'm no expert, but we do need to air some of the benefits that the vets get more often than we actually do. So, and thank you, Rich, for chiming in on that discussion. Appreciated. All right. Well, that's it for today. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to have my two co-moderators with me. And I guess our next meeting will be on Monday, albeit Labor Day. It's going to be late in the day. So most of you can come on smelling like barbecue. And, we'll go from there.
Oh, happy to have you back, Rick. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night now.
Thanks, Rick. Take care.
Good night.
Yep. Bye-bye.